AOC insults. John Kennedy. Sit down, boy. But his response shocks all of America. The air inside the CNN debate studio was heavy, charged with an electricity that seemed to hum through the polished floors and bounce off the sleek modern set. Rows of lights blazed overhead, casting a stark glow on the two figures seated at the center of the stage, each poised in their own way, like gladiators awaiting the first strike. On one side sat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the fiery Democratic Congresswoman from New York, known to the world as AOC. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, her eyes sharp and unyielding, her red blazer a bold statement against the neutral backdrop. At 36, she was a force of nature, a social media juggernaut, whose every word could ignite a movement or spark a firestorm. Her presence radiated energy, the kind that drew every eye in the room, and millions more watching from screens across the country. Across from her sat John Kennedy, the senior senator from Louisiana, a man whose folksy charm and sharp wit had made him a fixture in American politics. At 74, Kennedy carried himself with the calm assurance of someone who'd seen it all, decades of legislative battles, countless debates, and a career built on blending Southern drawl with cutting intellect. His gray suit was understated, his posture relaxed, but his eyes glinted with the focus of a man who knew exactly where he stood and wasn't about to be moved. The audience, a mix of journalists, political insiders, and everyday citizens, sat in tense anticipation, their whispers fading as Anderson Cooper stepped to the podium, his voice steady but tinged with the weight of what was about to unfold. This wasn't just another debate. It was a clash of generations, ideologies, and visions for America's future, set against the backdrop of a nation grappling with division. Tonight's topic: energy policy, a subject that had become a lightning rod in a world increasingly defined by climate crises and economic realities. The stakes were high, the cameras were rolling, and the country was watching. Anderson Cooper's voice cut through the silence, welcoming the audience and laying out the rules. Tonight, we're here to discuss one of the most pressing issues facing our nation: how to balance energy independence with the urgent need for sustainable solutions. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Kennedy, thank you for joining us. He turned to AOC, first his question sharp and direct. Congresswoman, you've been a vocal advocate for the Green New Deal and a rapid transition to renewable energy. Critics argue your proposals are too costly and disruptive to industries like oil and gas. How do you respond? AOC leaned forward, her hands clasped lightly on the table, her voice clear and confident. Anderson, the question isn't whether we can afford to transition to clean energy, it's whether we can afford not to. Climate change is an existential threat. We're seeing wildfires, hurricanes, and heat waves devastate communities, including right here in America. My plan isn't just about cutting emissions. It's about creating millions of jobs, rebuilding our infrastructure, and ensuring no one gets left behind. The cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of bold action. Her words were crisp, rehearsed, yet passionate, drawing nods from some in the audience and a few murmurs from others. She glanced at Kennedy, a subtle challenge in her eyes, as if daring him to counter her vision of a transformed America. Cooper turned to Kennedy. Senator, your response? Kennedy adjusted his glasses, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth, his Louisiana drawl softening the edges of his words. Well, Anderson, I appreciate the Congresswoman's enthusiasm. I do. But let's talk straight. Energy's not just about ideals. It's about people's livelihoods. In Louisiana, oil and gas aren't just industries. They're how folks put food on the table. You can't just flip a switch and shut down refineries without a plan that doesn't leave workers high and dry. Renewables are part of the future, sure, but we need a bridge, not a cliff. His tone was measured, almost conversational, but carried a weight that resonated with the audience, particularly those skeptical of rapid change. The debate began to heat up, as AOC fired back, her voice rising slightly, but still controlled. "Senator, with all due respect, that's the kind of thinking that's kept us stuck for decades. We can't keep kicking the can down the road while our planet chokes. The Green New Deal isn't just a dream, it's a blueprint. We're talking about solar, wind, geothermal, and yes, jobs for those same workers you're talking about. Retraining programs, infrastructure investments. This isn't about leaving anyone behind. It's about bringing everyone forward." The audience clapped, some enthusiastically, others more reserved, sensing the growing tension. Kennedy nodded slowly, as if considering her words, then leaned into his microphone. "Congresswoman, I've heard a lot of blueprints in my time. Most of them look real pretty on paper, but don't hold up when the rubber meets the road. You're talking about retraining folks, but I've met rig workers in Louisiana who've been at it for 30 years. They don't want a government handout or a coding boot camp. They want to know their way of life isn't going to be yanked out from under them." His words struck a chord, earning applause from a portion of the audience, particularly those who saw him as a defender of traditional industries. AOC's eyes narrowed, her smile tight but unwavering. "Senator, it's not about handouts, it's about opportunity. If we don't act now, those same workers will face a future where